Encanto, a movie filled with brilliant animation, songs, powers, and an underlying theme of how generational trauma can destroy a family and lead to intense emotional and mental abuse. You know, just your average, typical Disney work lately. And much like most Disney musical masterpieces, Encanto has swept the world by storm, from hundreds of fan art comics to cover after cover after cover of We Don't Talk About Bruno. People cannot get enough of Encanto and the magnificent Madrigals. Although many questions still remain, two of the biggest have been, will there be a sequel, and what, if any, are Mirabelle's powers? And that, dear watchers, are what we're going to look at today. And welcome to Wolf Tales, where storytelling runs wild. Holy claw, it's been a long time since I used that phrase, but things have been hectic in my life. If you want to know what's up, take a look at the update video that was released today along with this one and the MLP Gen 5 video. For now, however, let's dive right into the topic of today's video, the vibrant world of Encanto. For those unaware of the hit sensation, Encanto is a movie about the Madrigal family and their incredible gifts that they use to help their town. When a Madrigal reaches the age of 5, they are able to touch the candle and get a door within the casita, which reflects the power they are blessed with by the candle. Our heroine, Mirabel Madrigal, however, was blessed with no door or power, and kind of like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, tries her best to fit in despite all her differences. When the magic starts to disappear from the casita, it's up to Mirabel to save the magic and, spoiler alert, fix the candle, bring her family back together, which finally gets her own magical door to the casita. The front door, in fact. The Madrigals go home and everything seems fine. At least for now. With the Encanto being exposed to outside forces, we have no idea what's waiting for the hidden village when strangers start to come in. Will they try to help or hurt the Encanto? And will it be up to the Madrigals to stop them? All of these questions made me think over the months, and maybe I'm a bit late to the party, but I want to throw my paw in the ring and give it a shot at looking at what could come next. So, I decided that I was going to analyze the Madrigal powers and assess if they could grow like we see with Isabella, or if they were stuck where they were. And to my surprise, I found something truly interesting. Because let me tell you, not only can every Madrigal power evolve, there is a good chance that they can become even stronger. And it all has to do with our favorite glasses-wearing Madrigal, Mirabel. So let's get those party shoes on and start this theory examining Mirabel and her supposed lack of powers. Like many on the internet have said, it appears Mirabel does indeed have a destiny related to the casita, and that most likely that destiny is to be the next candlebearer. Evidence for this comes from comparing the candle holder who's currently in charge, Abuela, to Mirabel herself. Both are women who have no powers in the casita, who are able to communicate with the house, and seem to be able to affect the family and powers they have. We see this through things like most of the Madrigal powers before Mirabel's ceremony were practical and had specific uses to help the community grow. Abuela did help guide them in their ceremony and gifted them with grand powers, but it came with major drawbacks, like Peppa having to emotionally stunt herself to keep the weather nice, or Dolores constantly getting headaches to listen around at everyone she knows. This trend is constant until Antonio's ceremony, where he seems to get a power that fits him the best personality-wise and has little to no downsides. Comparing the two groups, the only real difference we see from them is it appears to be that Mirabel is the one to guide him to the candle, and even talks with him before like Abuela did to her. Heck, we even get a hint of maybe she played a larger role because she gifted him with a stuffed jaguar who ends up being Antonio's friend. So if Mirabel does seem to be lined up as the next candle holder, and does seem to bring out stronger and safer powers in the people she helps, is there evidence to show that she could maybe adjust the powers of the other Madrigals? The answer is yes. In the film, Mirabel and her eldest sister Isabella, a young woman with the power to grow flowers, has a heart-to-heart leading to the song, What Else Can I Do? As this plays out, we see Isabella growing her powers to add more plants to her roster than just flowers like sundew and strangling figs. This is not only grand for her mental health, but at the same time is a great defensive upgrade and can be really helpful to the land around them. With being able to make a new barrier of plants or even craft antidotes from the vibrant garden she makes, Isabella's powers seem to be better than ever and seem to grow with her character arc. All thanks to Mirabel. Heck, even if we were to put this back to Antonio, I could see him with a similar development as time goes on and Mirabel is in charge, to even being able to share abilities with his animal friends, like being able to fly like a toucan or climb like a jaguar. While I'm not sure if Augustine or Felix could get powers with Mirabel as the head, I could see, if it was possible, Augustine having a luck-based power and Felix having a power connected to emotions. With all this evidence, I definitely think we have a strong case to make Mirabel being the next candle holder and her role as a new guide to change the powers. But to put it into practice, let's go through each of the Madrigals and test to see how each of them could change under Mirabel's leadership and the significance of that change. Starting off this assessment, we're going to go over the Madrigals who got the least amount of attention in the movie, Peppa's side of the family. For as much as the movie focused on us bonding with the whole family, we really only got to bond with most of Peppa's side of the family during Antonio's gifting ceremony and the song We Don't Talk About Bruno. Heck, we even get more character analysis of this side of the family through fan songs than we do actual screen time, which I honestly hope changes in the sequel. Besides Antonio's animal powers, we have 3 Madrigals to count off. Peppa's weather-based powers connected to her emotion, Dolores' super hearing ability that causes her migraines and pain, and Camilo's shape-shifting powers that allow him to change shape and retain physical abilities in his old self, but really has people asking for other people than him. Most of these powers, much like their mother, is based on emotions and mental states, and thus seems to have the most downsides in the Madrigal house. I mean, being able to control the weather is great, unless you count the fact that Peppa would need to keep her emotions in check all the time, like in childbirth, and then that is absolutely horrible. Dolores being able to hear long distances would be great for eavesdropping, but not when it causes Dolores constant migraines and pain, like in the song Turn It Down. Camilo's trickster changing abilities can work great for pranks and espionage, but mentally would be taxing on a person's self-worth, like seen in Camilo's interlude. Both of those songs, by the way, I'm going to link in the description because they are awesome. Give the creators lots of love. Each of these Madrigals got a pretty rotten hand in the luck department, but with a few tweaks, could be some of the most powerful Madrigals under the Casitas roof. For Peppa, the easiest solution for her would be to remove the emotional tie or at least tone it down. Peppa's ending character arc was to learn to express herself despite the weather, so allowing her to express herself without fully worrying about the powers isn't such a bad idea. If she could somehow use her emotions, or possibly just craft the weather herself into smaller versions and send them out as personal weathers for people, it could not only help her grow emotionally, but help the town. If somebody wants a sunny day and someone else wants a rainy day, it could be that Peppa would need to do both, and then that would really just mess with her mental health. By doing it this way, Peppa could intensify the weather she makes and produce something like twice as much rain for the crops, while also making someone have a lovely sunny day, and even for protection, having little lightning storms and hailstorms to keep people back. It may not be as widespread as the power she has now, but smaller weathers could be beneficial for her and the town in the long run. Next up with Dolores, we are also going to be adjusting her pretty unfair downside to her powers, but this time altering it in a different route than we did with Peppa. You see, where I believe Peppa can keep a similar power but on a different scale, Dolores, I think, should have her power swapped entirely for a new personal growth for her. I believe that with Mirabel as the candle holder, Dolores could truly grow in her senses of not super hearing, but of an ability to read minds. By removing her sensitive hearing and allowing her to express herself and be her true self, Dolores could have new struggles connected with her psychic ability. Perhaps Dolores needs to see or touch a person in order to hear their thoughts, and though it may be a bit much for her at first, it could at least cut down on her earplugs and migraine medication she could need. Plus, if we're being honest, if she does have kids with Mariano, she definitely does not need a screaming kid with those ears. Finally, Camilo is a little tricky, to be honest. He is the Madrigal with the least amount of screen time and the least amount of lines, so his character development is kind of in the toilet. Using similar tropes and fan songs, however, we can compare his representation in the film to having things like his shape-shifting affect his self-worth, and that could be our hint as to how to evolve his power over time. While I like the idea of him keeping his shape-shifting abilities and perhaps giving him another side use for them like Isabella's Powder Blast, by instead of having him change into a person, having his stats change with a sharing ability. Having Camilo be able to touch a person and instead of shift his form to look like them, shift his abilities to match that person, he would be able to help individuals while also still being himself. It could still bring issues of self-worth, but more people would ask for Camilo himself and not to look like a person to give them advantages. While Camilo is a little tricky to sort out with his lack of screen time, his uncle Bruno, however, is much easier to piece together as we mosey across the family tree with our next power growth. I could make a whole video on my feelings about this lovable rat storytelling guy, but for now, let's focus on his development and powers. Being an outcast, Bruno had a pretty tough life until eventually he was forced to stay in the walls within the casita to be near his family without hurting them. He ended up developing a backbone to stand up for himself and to bond with the family he had, but it still was a little bit of an issue for him. His future sight seems to still be a sore spot, and although he was unsure about how to go forward with it, he was accepted by the family instead of being shunned by them. I mean, I would have preferred to see them say sorry to him like they did with Mirabel and Abuela, but that's a hope for the sequel. Regardless, Bruno's whole archetype plays off well on the phrase, "your future is set in stone." What most people were upset by was the fact that their future seemed to be written down for them when Bruno was merely seeing what he saw happen and tried to warn them. So instead of putting all the pressure on Bruno and his stones, what if the future was literally in their hands in the form of a book? You know those adventure books? The ones where you pick your own path? Well, what if, like how Mirabelle's stone tablet could shift, what if the future Bruno crafted for people gave them the blueprints for different outcomes, but let them choose the path they wished? To remove the blame if something goes wrong solely on Bruno, and to let people have a more understanding of their actions and the consequences of what they do. It would help Bruno still have his powers, yet not have the ire from the entire town making him feel horrid for being himself. And on top of that, having more blueprints means that Bruno and them could work out the best strategy and have happier endings. While future sight is hard to try and one-up, I still think shifting and changing it in how people view his visions could be a great development for the amazing Tio of the Madrigal family. And speaking of amazingness, let's look over the final two members of this wonderful family, Buff Louisa and Caring Julieta. Both of these women are the support of their respective siblings to both bring them up and also defend them against scorn, even if it comes from their own. While both show a different form of strength, their journeys seem to follow a similar route of learning to not take on as much work at one time. Well, at least that's what we see with Louisa. Julieta, much like Camilo, gets little to no screen time, so it's hard to determine what exactly her development is and how it would shift over time, with Mirabel being the candle holder. But if her character progression is similar to Louisa, then learning to relieve pressure from her job could be a big clue at where her powers can grow from here. In Louisa's case, it's very clear that allowing the town to take on their own responsibilities and not having her be the sole person they ask to do work with them is where her end goal is. So what if Louisa did a reverse Camilo? Instead of sharing abilities to improve herself from others around her, she improves others by sharing her gift with them. By giving out bits of her strength to others, they can work at their own pace and finish their own jobs, and allow Louisa to have some de-stress time and, in a way, do more at one time. Similarly with Julieta, I think having Julieta expand out to both diagnose issues as well as heal certain injuries could allow Julieta to give aid on a larger scale to her townmates and save her energies for things people need that aren't just scrapes and bruises. By taking the load off of the support members of the family, they could relax and grow as characters and find out if there's more to life than this and themselves. And much like the rest of their family we've seen, shine bright like a blazing star in the night sky. And there you have it, my idea for how the Encanto series could expand in the hopeful next movie, and my spin on the theory of Mirabel being the next candle holder. It may not be perfect, but much like the other Madrigals, it'll shine its own imperfect way and find its place amongst the theories. For now, check out the new MLP Gen 5 review I've posted, as well as the update video to tell you where I've been. As well, please make sure to comment down below to tell me what you want. Do you want more Encanto videos, more animated films, or something else? Let me know to help the channel grow. So until next time, this has been Silver Starling. See you next time you want to run with the pack.